I died and Jesus showed me the spiritual battle behind the L.A. wildfires. The sky turned an eerie orange as smoke choked the air. I could feel the heat of the approaching flames, my heart racing. As a firefighter, I've faced countless infernos, but nothing prepared me for what I was about to discover. My name's Savannah, and I've seen things that'll make your head spin. During a rescue gone wrong, I had a near-death experience that changed everything. Jesus showed me the truth. These wildfires aren't just destroying homes and forests. They're tearing away at our very goodness. It's not just about climate change. There's a spiritual battle raging all around us, and it's more real than you can imagine. I never thought I'd die in a fire, but there I was, surrounded by flames and thick smoke, trying to save a family trapped in their home. The heat seared my skin through my gear, sweat trickling down my face. My eyes stung as I squinted through the haze, struggling to see more than a few feet ahead. As I navigated the burning house, the roar of the fire was deafening. Wood crackled and popped, the structure groaning under the intense heat. This was one of California's worst wildfires, and I could taste the acrid ash even through my mask. My heart raced as I pushed forward, thinking, "Where are they? Please let them be alive." Then I heard it, faint coughing and whimpering. I found the family huddled in a corner, terror etched on their faces. A young girl clutched her teddy bear, eyes wide with fear. "We're gonna get you out of here," I reassured them, trying to keep my voice steady. I led them towards the exit, shielding them from falling debris. The mother stumbled, and I caught her arm. "Almost there," I encouraged. Suddenly, a loud crack echoed above. I looked up to see a massive beam plummeting towards us. In that split second, instinct took over. I shoved the family forward, out of harm's way, but I wasn't quick enough to save myself. The beam crashed down, and everything went dark. I thought that was it, the end of Savannah Cole, firefighter and social media star. But then something strange happened. The pain vanished, along with the suffocating heat. When I opened my eyes, I was somewhere else. The air was hazy, but breathing didn't hurt. I looked down, expecting burns or blood, but saw nothing. I felt weightless, almost floating. In the distance, a bright light pierced through the haze, growing stronger and closer. And then I saw him. Jesus, radiating an intense yet comforting glow. I blinked, unable to believe my eyes. Was this real? Was I dead? A million questions raced through my mind, but I couldn't speak. I just stood there, awestruck. Jesus smiled, and a wave of peace washed over me. It felt like he could see right through me, understanding every doubt and fear I'd ever had. Without a word, he extended his hand. I knew this gesture held immense significance. As I reached out, a mix of excitement and trepidation filled me. What was I about to witness? What truths would he reveal? I'd always believed in God, but I'd had my doubts, especially after witnessing so much suffering. Now, face to face with Jesus himself, I felt overwhelmed yet curious. I looked into his eyes, sensing that whatever he was about to show me would change everything. I was about to see the world in a completely new light, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for it. I stood there, face to face with Jesus, and it felt like time had stopped. His eyes were so full of love, it almost hurt to look at them, but I couldn't look away. He was glowing with a light that seemed to come from inside him, pushing back the smoky darkness around us. I wanted to speak, to ask him a million questions, but my mouth wouldn't work. It was like I was frozen in place. Jesus smiled at me, and I felt a warmth spread through my whole body. It was like being wrapped in the softest, warmest blanket on a cold night. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't confused. I just felt peace. It was the kind of peace I'd never felt before, not even when I was safe at home after a long day of fighting fires. "Savannah," Jesus said, and his voice was like nothing I'd ever heard. It was gentle but strong, like a river flowing over smooth stones. "I have much to show you." I tried to nod, to say something, anything, but I still couldn't move. It was like my body wasn't mine anymore. But somehow, I knew Jesus understood. He could see right into my heart, and he knew how amazed and grateful I was to be there with him. As I stood there, I started to notice things I hadn't seen before. The air around us was shimmering, like heat waves on a hot road. But it wasn't hot. It wasn't cold either. It was just perfect. And the ground beneath my feet, it looked like clouds, but it felt solid. Everything about this place was strange and wonderful. Jesus took a step closer to me, and I could see the details of his face more clearly. He had kind eyes that seemed to change color as I looked at them. Sometimes they were deep brown, sometimes bright blue. His skin was glowing from within, like there was a light shining just under the surface. And his smile, it made me want to smile too, even though I still couldn't move my face. "You have questions," Jesus said, and it wasn't a question. Of course I had questions. So many questions. How was I here? What happened to the fire? Was I dead? What about the family I was trying to save? But before I could even try to ask, Jesus continued, "All will be revealed in time. For now, know that you are here for a purpose." I felt a tingle run through my body, from the top of my head to the tips of my toes. It was like my body was waking up after being asleep for a long time. Suddenly, I could move again. I took a deep breath, and it felt like the first real breath I'd ever taken. "Jesus," I said, and my voice sounded small and shaky. I don't understand." He reached out and touched my shoulder, and a flood of memories washed over me. I saw myself as a little girl, praying before bed. I saw myself as a teenager, angry at God for letting bad things happen. I saw myself as an adult, risking my life to save others, but doubting if there was any higher purpose to it all. "You have always had a strong spirit, Savannah," Jesus said, "but you have lost your way. You have forgotten the power of faith." I felt tears start to roll down my cheeks. He was right. I had lost my way. I had been so focused on saving lives that I had forgotten about saving souls, including my own. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Jesus smiled again, and I felt his forgiveness wash over me like a cool breeze. "There is no need for sorrow here," he said. "You are here to learn, to see, and to understand. Are you ready?" I took another deep breath and nodded. "Yes," I said, and I was surprised by how strong my voice sounded. "I'm ready." Jesus held out his hand to me. "Then come," he said. "There is much for you to see." As I took his hand, I felt a surge of energy flow through me. It was like nothing I'd ever experienced before. I knew that whatever Jesus was about to show me, it would change everything. I was about to see the world in a whole new way, and I was both excited and terrified. As Jesus led me forward, the world around us transformed. The smoky darkness parted, revealing a scene that made my heart race. I was about to witness the true face of evil behind the wildfires. Dark shapes moved through the smoke, and as we got closer, I realized they weren't people at all. They were demons. Tall, thin creatures with long arms ending in sharp claws. Their skin was black as coal, and their eyes glowed red like hot embers. They moved through the fire as if it was nothing more than a cool breeze. I watched in horror as one demon approached a family trying to escape the flames. The creature didn't touch them, but I could see the fear on their faces grow. The youngest child started crying, and the parents began to argue about which way to go. Another demon whispered into a firefighter's ear, making him doubt his abilities. "Why are they doing this?" I asked, feeling angry and confused. Jesus looked at me, his eyes full of sorrow. "They serve a darker power that seeks to destroy all that is good in this world. These demons target disasters because fear spreads quickly in times of crisis. They use it to their advantage, feeding off the chaos and despair." I saw a group of demons gathering around a news crew, seeming to grow stronger with each dire prediction and grim statistic the reporter shared. Feeling desperate to help, I tried to shout a warning to a nearby family, but my voice made no sound in this spiritual realm. I looked at Jesus, frustrated by my powerlessness. He squeezed my hand gently. "I know it's difficult to watch, Savannah, but this isn't the whole picture. Where there is darkness, there is also light." Jesus pointed to the sky above the town. As I focused, I began to make out shapes in the air. They were beautiful beings of light, with wings that seemed to be made of pure energy. Angels. For every demon that seeks to destroy, there is an angel fighting to protect, Jesus explained. I watched in awe as an angel approached the arguing family. The angel's presence seemed to calm them, and suddenly they were working together, packing their car with determination instead of panic. Another angel touched the doubtful firefighters, and I saw their faces change. They stood taller, more confident, ready to face the challenge ahead. "This is incredible," I said, my voice filled with wonder. "I had no idea all of this was happening behind the scenes." Jesus smiled at me. "That's why it's so important for you to see this, Savannah. The battle you fight on Earth is just a small part of a much larger war, a war for the souls of humanity." As I watched the angels and demons continue their invisible battle, I knew that when I went back, if I went back, I would never look at a wildfire the same way again. As Jesus and I stood there, I noticed something strange about the smoke. It wasn't just rising from the fires. It was moving on its own, twisting and curling like it had a mind of its own. That's when I saw them. Dark shapes were moving through the smoke, but they weren't people. These things were tall and skinny, with arms that seemed too long for their bodies. Their skin was as black as coal, and their eyes glowed red like hot coals. "What are those things?" I whispered to Jesus. "Those are demons," Jesus said softly. "They use these fires to spread fear and make people lose hope." I watched in horror as one of the demons glided towards a family trying to escape the flames. It reached out with its long clawed hands and seemed to touch their heads. Suddenly, the family started arguing and pushing each other, their faces twisted with panic. "They're making them more scared," I realized. "But why?" Jesus nodded. "Fear is like food for these demons. The more scared people are, the stronger they become." As we walked through the smoky landscape, I saw more demons at work. They whispered into the ears of firefighters, making them doubt themselves. They hovered around news reporters, feeding off the frightening words they spoke. In a small town getting ready to leave, I saw demons moving among the people. They touched an old man, and suddenly he started yelling at his neighbors. A woman burst into tears for no reason. A group of teenagers began fighting over something stupid. "This is terrible," I said, feeling angry. "How can they do this to people?" Jesus put a hand on my shoulder. "They want to destroy everything good in the world. By making people scared and angry, they push them away from each other and from faith." I watched as a demon floated near a group of firefighters. It whispered something, and I saw their faces fall. They looked tired and hopeless. Are they giving up?" I asked, not wanting to believe it. "The demons try to break their spirit," Jesus explained. "If they can make the helpers lose hope, who will be left to fight?" I felt a surge of anger. These demons were using one of the worst days of people's lives to hurt them even more. It wasn't fair. It wasn't right. But why? I asked, my voice shaking. Why are they doing all this? Jesus looked at me with sad eyes. They serve a darker power, one that wants to destroy everything good in the world. These fires are just one way they try to do that. I thought about all the times I'd fought fires, how hard it was to keep going when things looked hopeless. Now I understood why it felt like more than just a physical battle. It was spiritual too. So every time there's a big fire, these things are there, making it worse? I asked, feeling sick to my stomach. Jesus nodded. Not just fires. Any disaster, anytime people are scared or hurting, they try to use it to their advantage. I watched as a demon floated near a group of people huddled together. It seemed to be feeding off their fear, growing stronger. This is awful, I said. How can we stop them? That's part of why you're here, Jesus said, to see the truth and to understand what you're really fighting against. I felt a determination growing inside me. I'd always thought my job was just about putting out fires and saving lives. Now I saw it was so much more. We weren't just fighting flames. We were fighting against forces that wanted to destroy people's hope and faith. I want to stop them, I said, clenching my fists. I want to help people see what's really happening. Jesus smiled at me. That's good. But remember, for every demon trying to destroy, there's an angel fighting to protect. Would you like to see them? I nodded, my heart racing with anticipation. Jesus smiled and gestured towards the chaos around us. Suddenly, the smoky air shimmered and parted, revealing a sight that took my breath away. Glowing figures emerged from the haze, their bodies radiating a soft, warm light. They had human-like forms, but their skin gleamed like polished marble. Their eyes shone with fierce determination and compassion. What struck me most were their wings. Woven from sunbeams and starlight, they constantly shifted and rippled as the angels moved. When spread wide, it was like watching the northern lights dance across the sky. I watched in awe as one of these celestial beings swooped down towards a group of panicked firefighters. The angel placed a gentle hand on the shoulder of a young woman who looked ready to give up. Instantly, her posture changed. She straightened up, determination replacing fear in her eyes, and rallied her team with renewed energy. They can't see the angels, Jesus explained, but they can feel their presence. It gives them strength when they need it most. As we moved through the fiery landscape, I saw angels everywhere, each engaged in its own battle against the darkness. One hovered over a family trapped in their car, wings spread wide to shield them from falling debris. Another stood at the edge of a cliff, guiding a lost hiker away from danger with gentle nudges of wind. The angels seemed to be fighting the fire itself, wielding swords made of pure light. When they swung these weapons, the flames recoiled and dimmed, creating pockets of safety in the midst of chaos. Are they putting out the fire? I asked, hope rising in my chest. Jesus shook his head. Not exactly. They're creating pathways, moments of clarity and safety. It's still up to the people to choose to follow those paths. I watched as an angel cleared a section of road, pushing back the flames and smoke. Moments later, a fire truck barreled through, carrying vital supplies to a cut-off community. As impressive as the angels' actions were, I couldn't help but notice they seemed outnumbered. For every angelic warrior, there were several demons lurking in the shadows, waiting to undo their work. Why don't they just wipe out all the demons? I asked, frustration creeping into my voice. Jesus looked at me with understanding. Free will, Savannah. The angels can guide and protect, but they can't force people to make the right choices. That's why your role is so important. My attention was drawn to a scene nearby. A group of neighbors was arguing fiercely, their fear and stress boiling over into anger. A demon circled them, its red eyes gleaming with satisfaction. But then an angel appeared, its presence like a cool breeze on a hot day. It didn't stop the argument, but I watched as one woman took a deep breath and softened her tone. That small act rippled through the group, calming tempers and fostering cooperation. "You see," Jesus said, "the angels provide opportunities for people to be their best selves, even in the darkest moments. But it's still a choice." As we continued to observe, I felt a growing sense of purpose. These celestial beings weren't just fighting fires or saving lives in the physical sense. They were battling for the very soul of humanity, one small act of kindness and courage at a time. Could prayer really create a shield against raging flames? I felt a surge of hope as Jesus gestured toward a group of people nearby. "Watch closely," he said, his eyes twinkling. The people were huddled together, hands clasped, heads bowed. As they prayed, a soft glow began to form around them. It was faint at first, like the gentle light of a firefly. But as their prayers grew stronger, so did the light. It started to spread outward, forming a dome-like shield over them. I watched in amazement as a wall of fire approached the group. The flames were hungry, devouring everything in their path. But when they reached the glowing shield, something incredible happened. The fire split, like water parting around a rock in a stream. It flowed around the protected area, leaving the people inside completely untouched. "Wow," I whispered, unable to take my eyes off the scene. "Is that really happening?" Jesus nodded, a smile playing on his lips. "Faith is a powerful force, Savannah. When people truly believe and put their trust in God, it creates a shield that even the strongest fires can't break through." As we walked, I saw more examples of this miracle in action. A small church stood firm against the inferno, its congregation inside, singing hymns. In another area, a family's faith created a bubble of safety around their home. "The strength of the shield depends on the strength of the faith," Jesus explained. "Look over there." He pointed to a man standing alone, his prayer hesitant and unsure. The shield around him flickered weakly. As the fire approached, it pushed against the barrier, causing it to waver. The man's eyes widened in fear, his faith faltering. "He needs help," I said, instinctively wanting to run to him. But before I could move, a woman rushed to his side. She took his hand, her own faith strong and unwavering. As they prayed together, the shield grew brighter, pushing back against the flames with renewed strength. "United faith is even more powerful," Jesus said softly. "When believers come together, their shields can protect entire communities." I watched as the battle between faith and fire played out across the landscape. In some places, the prayers were so strong that they didn't just stop the fire. They actually pushed it back. I saw a group of firefighters, exhausted and nearly out of hope, drop to their knees in prayer. As they did, their shield expanded, creating a safe zone for them to work. "How can we harness this power?" I asked, my mind racing with possibilities. Jesus held up a hand, his expression gentle but serious. "True prayer comes from the heart. It requires genuine faith, humility, and a willingness to trust in something greater than yourself." I nodded, understanding dawning. This wasn't some magic spell or secret technique. It was about a real, living relationship with God. As we continued to observe, I saw how the prayers were slowly but surely turning the tide against the fire. Areas that had been written off as lost were being reclaimed. Hope was spreading faster than the flames ever could. Just when I thought I'd seen the worst of the spiritual battle, Jesus led me away from the fire lines and into a plush office that looked like it belonged in Washington, D.C. The sudden change in scenery was jarring, like stepping from a war zone into a corporate boardroom. The room was filled with well-dressed men and women, their faces stern as they argued over stacks of papers. These are the people who make decisions about our planet, Jesus said, his voice tinged with sadness. Watch closely, Savannah. I leaned in, trying to make sense of what I was seeing. At first, it looked like a normal meeting, but then I noticed something that made my skin crawl. Shadowy figures, similar to the demons I'd seen before, were hovering behind some of the people in the room. They whispered into their ears, their words causing the humans to nod and speak with more anger. What are they saying? I asked Jesus, my voice barely above a whisper. They're feeding them lies, he replied, telling them that short-term profits are more important than long-term care for the earth, that their power matters more than the lives of those affected by climate disasters. I watched in horror as one of the shadowy figures touched a man's shoulder. The man immediately stood up, his face red with anger. We can't afford to invest in renewable energy right now, he shouted. It'll cost too many jobs. Another demon-touched woman chimed in. The wildfires aren't as bad as the media makes them out to be. We shouldn't overreact. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. These people had the power to make real change, to help prevent disasters like the one I'd just been fighting. But instead, they were being manipulated by dark forces to ignore the problem. As I watched, I saw how their decisions rippled out into the world. A vote to loosen environmental regulations led to more pollution. A choice to ignore climate science resulted in less funding for firefighters and forest management. Each decision added fuel to the fires I'd been fighting, making them bigger, hotter, and harder to control. I felt overwhelmed. How could we possibly fight against something so big, so deeply rooted in the systems that ran our world? But then, just as despair was about to take hold, I saw something that gave me hope. A young woman in the back of the room stood up. She didn't look important or powerful, but there was a light in her eyes that caught my attention. We need to think about the future, she said, her voice quiet but firm. Not just our profits, but the world we're leaving for our children and grandchildren. As she spoke, I saw an angel appear behind her, gently touching her shoulder. The woman's words seemed to grow stronger, and a few people in the room began to nod along with her. This is how we fight back, Jesus said, a smile in his voice. With truth, spoken bravely and from the heart. It may seem small, but even a tiny spark of light can push back the darkness. I watched as the meeting continued, feeling a mix of anger at what I'd seen and hope for what could be. I knew that when I got back to my life, I couldn't just fight fires anymore. I had to fight the lies and the greed that were making those fires worse. I gasped for air, my lungs burning as if I'd just run a marathon. The harsh fluorescent light stabbed at my eyes, and the sharp smell of disinfectant filled my nostrils. Hospital. I was in a hospital. For a moment, I couldn't remember why. Then it all came crashing back. The fire, the falling beam, and Jesus. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of what had happened. Was it all a dream? But it felt so real, more real than anything I'd ever experienced. I could still hear Jesus' voice, see the angels and demons battling in the smoke. A nurse rushed in, alerted by my increased heart rate. Savannah, you're awake. How are you feeling? I tried to speak, but only managed a raspy. Confused? The nurse nodded sympathetically. That's normal. You've been unconscious for 3 days. Do you remember the fire? 3 days. It felt like I'd been gone for both an eternity and just a moment. As the nurse helped me sip some water, I noticed something different. The world around me seemed sharper, more vivid. I could see the tiredness in the nurse's eyes, but I could also see a soft glow around her, barely visible but definitely there. Are you an angel? I blurted out. The nurse laughed kindly. No, honey, just a regular nurse. As she left, I struggled to process everything. The world I'd known before the fire felt like a distant memory. Now everything seemed charged with spiritual significance. I looked out the window and saw a bustling city street below. But instead of just seeing cars and people, I saw battles being waged. A man yelling at a parking meter had a dark shadow hovering near him. A woman helping an elderly person cross the street glowed with a soft light. My sister Jessica burst into the room, tears in her eyes. "Savannah! Oh, thank God you're okay!" As she hugged me, I felt a warmth spread through me. I could feel her love like it was a tangible thing. As Jessica filled me in on what had happened, I found myself struggling to focus. My mind kept drifting back to what Jesus had shown me. The demons feeding on fear, the angels fighting to protect us, the prayers creating shields of light. "Savannah, are you listening?" Jessica's voice snapped me back to the present. "Sorry, Jess, I have so much to tell you. So much happened while I was out." Jessica looked at me skeptically. "You mean you were dreaming?" I shook my head firmly. "No, not dreaming. I saw things, Jess, real things, about why these fires are happening, about what's really going on in the world." My sister's face clouded with concern. "Savannah, you've been through a traumatic experience. It's normal to have vivid dreams or hallucinations." I felt a flash of frustration. How could I make her understand? I took a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. "I know how it sounds, Jess, but what I experienced, it wasn't just some dream. It was real, and it's changed everything. I can see things now, things that were always there but hidden. There's a whole other world layered on top of ours, and it's affecting everything." Jessica's eyes widened, and I could see the worry deepen on her face. But I also saw something else, a flicker of curiosity, maybe even belief. That's when it hit me. This was my new mission, to share what I'd seen, to wake people up to the spiritual reality around us. It wouldn't be easy. I could already see the challenges ahead, but I knew in my heart that this was what I had to do. How do you tell the world you've seen heaven and hell without sounding completely insane? That was the challenge I faced after my near-death experience. I knew I had to share my message, but I quickly learned it wasn't going to be easy. My sister Jessica was the first person I told. As I lay in my hospital bed, I poured out my story: Jesus, demons, angels, and the spiritual battle behind the wildfires. Jessica's expression shifted from concern to confusion. "Savannah," she said gently, "you've been through a lot. Maybe it was just a dream." Her reaction was just the beginning. As soon as I was discharged, I started sharing my story with anyone who would listen. Some people were intrigued, asking questions and wanting to know more. Others looked at me like I had lost my mind, quickly changing the subject or finding excuses to walk away. My fire captain, Roy, was particularly skeptical. "Cole," he said, using my last name as he always did, "I'm worried about you. This talk about demons and angels, it's not like you." But I saw a flicker of curiosity in his eyes, and that was enough to keep me going. Realizing I needed a bigger platform, I turned to social media. I created accounts on every platform I could think of and started sharing my story. At first, it was just family and friends watching, but slowly, my audience began to grow. I made videos talking about what I'd seen, explaining the spiritual battle behind natural disasters. Some people called me crazy, but for every hater, there were 2 or 3 people who felt a connection to my words. Balancing my new mission with my firefighting career wasn't easy. I still showed up for my shifts, ready to battle the flames. But now, I saw the job differently. Every fire was a chance to fight on 2 fronts, the physical and the spiritual. I started praying with my team before we went out, asking for protection and guidance. Some of them thought it was weird at first, but after a few close calls where we made it out safely, even the skeptics started joining in. As my following grew, so did the community of believers and supporters. People from all over the country reached out to share their own spiritual experiences or to ask for guidance. I started organizing online prayer groups, bringing people together to create those powerful shields of faith I'd seen in my vision. There were nights when I lay awake, doubting myself. Was I really doing the right thing? What if it had all been some kind of hallucination caused by smoke inhalation? But then I'd remember the feeling of Jesus' presence, the love and peace that had washed over me, and I knew I couldn't give up. What is faith if not a powerful force that can change the course of our lives? I pondered this question as I stood among the ashes of yet another devastating fire. Faith, I realized, wasn't just about believing. It was about fighting back against the darkness that seemed to be spreading everywhere. As a firefighter, I'd felt helpless watching homes burn, despite our best efforts. But now I understood there was another way to fight, one that could work alongside our hoses and axes. Faith could be the ultimate firefighter. I started noticing little things that reinforced this belief. Once, we were battling a blaze threatening to jump a fire line when the wind suddenly shifted, pushing the flames back. I later learned a group of locals had been praying nearby. Coincidence? Maybe. But I'd seen too much to believe in coincidences anymore. Another time, we were evacuating a neighborhood when an elderly couple refused to leave their home, saying they were staying to pray. The fire raged all around, but their house stood untouched, as if protected by an invisible shield. These experiences made me think about how we could strengthen our faith. It wasn't just about Sunday church or saying grace before meals. It was about truly believing, deep in your gut, that there was something bigger than us out there, something that cared. I encouraged my team to take a moment before each shift to center themselves. Some prayed, others just breathed deeply. The change was noticeable. We worked better together and stayed calmer under pressure. Inspired by these results, I started organizing online prayer groups, connecting people who wanted to make a difference. We'd gather virtually, sharing our intentions for specific areas threatened by fires and for the safety of firefighters and residents. And you know what? It felt like it was working. Reports would come in of unexpected rainstorms or sudden changes in wind direction that saved homes and lives. But it wasn't just about the big miracles. It was about the little ones too, like when a firefighter would find the strength to keep going after hours of exhaustion. I began to see a bigger picture forming. What if this movement of faith could spread beyond just fighting fires? What if it could help heal our divided communities, bring people together in a way that politics and arguments never could? I thought about the vision of a world torn apart by greed and fear. But now I could see another possibility. A world where people stood together, where faith gave us the strength to face any challenge. It wouldn't be easy, but I believe that if enough of us chose love and faith, we could change the course of the future. I've witnessed things that have transformed me forever. Our world faces a battle for its very soul, and every choice carries more weight than we realize. Faith isn't just about Sunday services. It's a powerful force shaping our world. When we unite and believe in something greater, we can push back the darkness. It's time to wake up and reignite our spiritual fire. I've seen the consequences of inaction, and they're dire. But I've also witnessed incredible transformations when we act. My experiences have changed how I approach each day, finding purpose in even the smallest acts of love. We can change our course, but we must start now. Join me in making a difference. Every prayer, every act of kindness matters. Together we can create a brighter future. The power to shape our world lies within us all.